Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Shift, a year of living creatively with your hosts, the Reluctant Gurus. And we have here today, of course, the wonderful Anne-Marie and myself, Shannon. And today we are talking about summer and balance because it is a hard time. People are very busy to keep up routines, keep up doing the things that keep you well. And so we're going to talk about rest and relaxation and just everything about that. So to get started with it, I mean, what inspired us to speak about this? We were chatting just before this about the fact that in July, like nearly everyone I know got unwell. They got flus, colds, sicknesses were going around. And I myself even was unwell about a week ago. So it's just an interesting time of year because you think in summer, particularly where we are, the weather is meant to be a little bit nicer, a little bit warmer. People should be technically more relaxed, more rested, enjoying more me time. But why are people not doing that? What do you think?
Like I was kind of reflecting on this recently, and I think sometimes, although it's summer and it's the time that, yeah, like people have the most holidays and therefore it should be like the most relaxing. But I think sometimes in our, well, Western society, we don't actually use summer to rest. We use like summer or holidays to like push ourselves. Like, I know sometimes, even I've kind of been reflecting that going on I'm not even motivated to go on holiday, because when you go on holiday, like sometimes it's like work. It's
Hmm.
actually like you go somewhere, you need a lot of energy to like, find the place where you're staying and look up all the activities that you're kind of expected these days when you go on holiday. A lot of people have these kind of expectations they put on themselves, like, oh, I'm going to this city, so I absolutely must visit this museum and I absolutely have to see this place. And
Hmm.
sometimes people, they go on these short trips and they pack all these things into like 2 days or 3 days. Or people go on these what should be like, beach holidays, or could be considered relaxing, but a lot of people want to do these kind of like more adventure sports, which
Hmm.
is fine, exactly. Like it's cool, that's a nice kind of holiday, but like I think the emphasis has to be like on balance
Hmm.
and about finding your, you know finding the center,
Yeah.
finding the balance between being and doing, right? So not always like go go go.
Yeah, I
What do you
completely
think about
agree. And I just think like having been on holiday myself in July, I only went away for 5 days and I was trying to go on a relaxation holiday, right? I was like, I want to go and just do nothing. For the first definitely 2 to 3 days, it, it's you're trying to get to that state of relaxation. You're just not there, like because you're
that?
so tied into the pace of everyday life. Things are on your mind. You're thinking, oh, I shouldn't just be laying here. I should be looking at this. I should be doing this. And it's hard to get out of that very busy rat race that we're in all the time. And I
That's very
think
true. Yeah.
I think you spend half your holiday trying to get out of that. So you're not really like relaxed by the time you come back as well. And like you were saying, if you put in like all this effort beforehand, the stress of flying, the stress of trains, the stress of,
Airports and the
yeah,
busy, yeah.
navigating a new place, different languages that are going on, like it probably is quite a stressful experience for our bodies and our minds without us realizing it. I mean, if you thought, okay, someone just picked you up now and put you in a place where you don't know anything about that place, like it's kind of an exotic, different location, and like our bodies and our minds are probably working overtime just to understand the new layout of things.
Mhm.
And like a child when they first come into the world and they're trying to figure out what's going on, how do I do this and how do I do that, there's a reason they sleep a lot. Need to
I,
process it all.
I think as well, like one thing I noticed since I started implementing like meditation as kind of a regular practice that I do. Again, it's not something I always stick to, but when I do stick to it, like it has very good effect. It often has like very beneficial effects.
Mhm.
And like it's something that's very funny because sometimes when I meditate, it's obviously not the same experience every time, but like I will often end a meditation session and I will just feel totally grounded and much more peaceful and
Mhm.
every like, you know, a little bit more zen. And it's funny because I've kind of reflected on that a few times after like meditating. And like I actually find that state much more peaceful
Mhm.
than being on holiday, which is the traditional like, okay, go relax, go enjoy yourself. And like I think for me, I very much have realized, and maybe we've touched on it before, that that state, like you said, like
Mhm.
it's all internal. You don't get that just because, you
Mhm.
know, of this like, you know, this thing you see on Instagram and you're sold in by the media, like,
Mhm.
okay, you're gonna go to this wonderful destination and there like you're gonna relax completely. I mean, look at these people on Instagram. They manage to like just look how peaceful they look in their
Mhm.
pictures, but it's not true. Like it's
Mhm.
you have to find that um like on the inside. And
Mhm.
sometimes I found that it can be beneficial to be in a more peaceful environment, like particularly nature for me. Sometimes that's very beneficial for helping me get to that state. But yeah, it's very much on the inside that
Mhm.
this peaceful state comes.
Yeah, definitely. And like one thing about holidays that people don't talk about a lot is like your routine gets totally thrown out the
Yeah,
window. And like we rely a lot more on that for our peace and for
that's
our
fair. Yeah.
mental well-being than we probably realize. So there might be reasons tied into that you're not feeling, as relaxed as you should be because your body is wondering why you're not getting up at the same time that you usually get up, or why you're not doing your meditation. Or so I think, like, for me, when I was on holiday, we were like lying by the pool, it was all great, and I was like, I need to go for a run.
Of course.
And my mother was like to me, "What? Like, why are you going for a run?" But I was like, I need that for to connect with that side of myself, for that balance, that peace, like, because that's part of
Mhm.
my connecting with nature. I love going running in nature, and I forget about everything else, and I just connect to this inner part of myself and this outer nature that I'm a part of. And I think people probably need to look at what they're doing at home that brings them that inner peace and brings them that, and take that with them on holiday, or try to do something similar on holiday and keep that element going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So another thing is, just there's just so much happening in summer that I think, you sort of feel guilty if you're not.
The,
So
the
putting
festivals.
Exactly. Putting holidays aside, but like if you're at home,
FOMO.
there's something happening, there's some festival on, you want to be there, you see it all over your social media. And then what's happening is you're not like resting, you're not getting your routine, you're meeting people after work more, the evenings are longer. So that's also something that's throwing out
Maybe
everything.
Maybe I don't mean to brag, but I might be a master of handling that because I've always found, and I'm quite rare among my friends in that sense, like I've never felt that pressure to do all those things in
Mhm.
summer. Like as you know, I live in Budapest and here we have this like big festival every year, Siget, and people travel from
Mhm.
all over to go to it. And yeah, so many people have asked me, "Are you going to Ziget this year?" Kind of hinting like everybody at least considers going, and
Mhm.
I'm always like, "No, like it's just not my thing. I don't like crowds. I don't like the idea of it." Of course, there's some wonderful musicians, and I understand why people want to go. But yeah, I also have always been very firm in my stance that I'm a morning person. So if people
Mhm.
ask me to kind of meet late in the evening, I I suggest, look, of course I want to be social and meet my friends, but I always push for an earlier time. But I know that I'm quite rare in that, and it's just my commitment to my routine because I know I get
Mhm.
completely pushed off when I'm not in it. But I know on the flip side, so many people talk of like FOMO and their
Mhm.
inability to, like,
Yeah,
yeah, nobody wants to
exactly.
stay
Yeah.
in and miss the fun.
Yeah, and I think like that's really great. Like you've made some really good points there about like really knowing yourself, because you can get swept up in that FOMO and you can actually like not really be enjoying what you're doing. You
Yeah,
can,
even though it's meant to be like super
yeah,
fun, right? Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Sometimes you feel wrecked tired, there's too much stimulation, things going on. Like, I mean, it's just not worth it. Like if your mental or physical health just isn't in there, like you're going to be in a much worse place having gone, and you're not going to enjoy it while you're there as well. So I think spending time getting to know yourself first and getting to know, okay, well, I need 8 hours sleep a night. I just don't function with less than that. So you need to prioritize that even in the busy periods. And it's not saying you don't have to have, you can't have any fun or you can't be spontaneous. We all like to be sometimes, but it's having maybe those guidelines, similar to the way a company might have guidelines for how people behave in the company. Like, how do you behave in your everyday life that has you functioning at your optimal? And
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, go from there. So what are the things that you might suggest that people might need, that you need, that might give people ideas of what they might need?
Well, I was saying, for me, so yeah, I think it's really about finding, when we're talking about balance, finding the way you rest the most. So,
Mhm,
for example, you said you need to go for a run, and probably it's not rest per se, but probably after that, that's when you feel like
mhm,
rested and more relaxed. I know that, like, I find it beneficial, like I already said, I do meditation,
mhm,
and that usually helps me. Of course, yoga. I always feel more grounded when I do yoga, and that's in my routine. And of course, like, we've spoken before about the importance of like being in nature.
mhm.
And again, that's not one thing I like. Trips to like big cities. I think that's kind of off my list as I've grown a bit older, when you're just like in a place like full of people. But yeah, like, on the flip side of that, yeah, I love being in nature. And I think that's a place that, like, even obviously living in a city, I went for a hike at the weekend, and just like breathing in that good air. Like, I
Mhm.
think it's so important for your body, and like it actually helps you relax. I think, I know, like, from walking in Wexford, on the beach, and then, like, whenever I went go for walks with my dad in Wexford on the beach, and then you come home and you're always just so much more relaxed.
Yeah,
Your
definitely.
body from that like fresh air that comes in. So I think things like that. And um, of course, like, we are all different, and we're all like different ages and stuff. So when I was like a few years ago, like 5 years ago, I think like I would have, maybe I also kind of had a bit more energy and a bit more of a higher immune system. So as you said, like, it's all about knowing yourself. And of
Mhm.
course, if someone wants to go on a party holiday, that's all good. But yeah, it's important to know, like, how you best rest and when you need the rest, right? Like, if
Yeah.
you're, like you said, a lot of people getting sick in summer, like feeling run down, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's definitely your body is actually telling you, like, you haven't been resting. You need
Mhm.
to rest, or you need to find balance. And yeah,
Mhm.
you need to find the best way for you to do that.
Definitely. And I think, something that's just come into my head there was you were speaking, you know, people I think are getting ill because this is probably the first summer where people are 100%, expected back in offices in a lot of cases, like at least
That's true.
3 days a week. And people are spreading illnesses again in a way that we haven't really seen since pre-pandemic. So, that's why it's even more important now to be finding your balance and making sure that you're going into these shared spaces with a healthy or as healthy as possible for you, immune system. Because that's definitely where I got ill from going into an office, where people were unwell, and my body's just not used to it. Particularly because I work, from home now most of the time, work for myself. So like I'm just not used to being in those environments anymore. But they're all fantastic points, and I would 100% agree with everything that you said. I think one thing that really helps me, I'm a person like that definitely gets caught up in the idea of like doing stuff. So I'm like in my head when someone invites me to something or something's going on, I'm like, oh my God, that sounds so amazing. Yeah, I want to do that. And before I know it, like I've agreed to do like something every day in a week. And then it comes to
Mhm.
that week, and then I'm like, why have I done this to myself? So, like, having a limit for me is really important. So, saying, okay, well, I can only go out 2 evenings in the week. And then when requests come in, I know, okay, I've got my 2 evenings. Once they're filled, then I have to say no. And that's really good for me. And that works for me. So kind of knowing how your mind works, maybe
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is on limitations, and just saying to yourself, okay, well, I can't ever do anything on Monday and Wednesday nights. They're definitely my nights, for me that I need to be in by myself. And this can be the same with it if you're living with a romantic partner or friends or even just housemates. If you're living with someone, you're sharing a lot of energy with people. So having time that's just for you, I think is really important, where you're just trying to relax yourself, whatever way suits you.
It all comes as well to those like polarities and the importance of balance in, more spiritual lessons or practices. And there's the yin and the yang, the
Hmm.
male and the female, and that also is the being
Hmm.
where you're just here, you're just being, and you're still, and then the doing. And
Hmm.
like it's important to find the balance between those two, because when you're off balance, it doesn't feel good. I mean,
Yeah.
when
I
a person is off balance, when yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. So something nice maybe to do with looking at balancing yourself in the summer is maybe like look back on the last week or two, maybe of and sort of sit down and analyze what you've done. How have you spent your time? What have you been doing? And maybe compare this to a typical week, in a different season of the year, maybe in winter. And from there, you're going to see, okay, how is your time shifting? How are your priorities shifting? And what maybe you need to change? Because if you're looking at that and it's all socializing and you're feeling exhausted, maybe you need to go, okay, well, I need to pull this back a bit. And it's not a case of getting rid of it, but it's a case of maybe adjusting your percentages of time you're spending on things. But I think even just that act of looking back at what you've done the last 2 weeks will bring you that awareness if you're not
Yeah.
feeling balanced. So, it's the end of our episode this week. I hope you tune in for next week. Thanks for listening.
Thanks everybody for listening.